After 6 years of marriage, I tried to be affectionate with my wife. She pulled away saying, "Don't touch me, I have self-respect," while texting her friends. The next morning, when she asked for favors, I smiled and said the same thing back. It was a Tuesday evening, nothing special about it. I'd just finished helping with dinner cleanup, while Emma sat on the couch scrolling through her phone, our routine for months. I walked over and sat beside her, putting my hand on her shoulder like any normal husband would. She immediately pulled away with an expression I'd never seen before. Cold, distant. "Don't touch me," she said, without looking up from her screen. "I have self-respect." I sat there processing what she'd just said. Self-respect? I wasn't being inappropriate or pushy. We're married. I was just trying to be affectionate with my own wife. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. She finally looked up, something different in her eyes. "It means I don't just let people touch me whenever they feel like it. I have standards." Standards, like I was some random guy at a bar instead of her husband of 6 years. This wasn't about being tired or having a headache. This was deliberate, calculated. The way she said self-respect felt like a weapon aimed directly at mine. "Since when do I fall into the category of people you need to protect yourself from?" "Since always," she said, returning to her phone. "You just never noticed before." I got up and went to the kitchen, mind racing. The whole exchange felt rehearsed. When I came back with water, she was texting furiously, thumbs flying across the screen like she was reporting breaking news. "Who are you texting?" "Just the girls," she said, without looking up. The girls. Lately, she'd been spending time with her single friends, the ones fresh out of bad relationships with very strong opinions about men. I sat back down, but kept my distance this time. If she wanted space, she'd have it. But I was watching now. She kept typing for 10 minutes, occasionally laughing at responses. Then she got up wordlessly and went to the bedroom, closing the door behind her. I stayed on the couch thinking about that phrase. I have self-respect. The way she said it implied touching your own spouse was somehow beneath someone with self-respect. I could hear her on the phone now, voice muffled but animated, excited even. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about tonight. This was a test, some new dynamic she was trying to establish. And I'd apparently failed step one by not accepting her new rules immediately. Well, if she wanted to play games with respect, we were going to play. But she might not like the rules when they applied both ways. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened, came down in her robe, poured coffee, started talking about her day like we hadn't just had the weirdest interaction of our marriage. "I need you to pick up my dry cleaning today," she said, stirring sugar into her mug. "The blue dress and my work blazers. They close at 6, so don't forget." I was buttering toast, listening to her list tasks like I was her personal assistant. "Oh, and can you stop by the bank? There's that overdraft fee on my account that needs handling. It's like $40, but still annoying." $40 she'd created by not tracking her spending. Now, my problem to fix. "Also," she continued, checking her phone, "I told Fiona we'd meet her and her new boyfriend for dinner Friday. That place downtown with the good steaks, the expensive one." She looked up expectantly, waiting for me to say, "Sure," or "No problem," like I always did. Instead, I set down my knife and looked directly at her. "Don't ask me," I said calmly. "I have self-respect too." The spoon stopped moving in her coffee cup. She stared like I'd spoken a foreign language. "What did you just say?" "You heard me. I have self-respect. I don't just do things whenever people feel like asking." Her mouth opened, then closed. Color started rising in her cheeks. That's completely different." "How?" "Because these are normal requests, practical things. And last night wasn't a normal moment between married people." She set her mug down harder than necessary. "That's not the same thing at all." "Isn't it? You said you have self-respect, so you don't let people touch you. Well, I have self-respect too, so I don't let people make demands of me." "People? I'm your wife." The irony wasn't lost on me. "Funny, last night I was just people to you." She stood abruptly, robe swirling. "This is ridiculous. You're being childish." "No, I'm being consistent. If we're establishing new boundaries about respect in this house, they apply to both of us. But I need those things done. And I needed my wife to not treat me like some stranger trying to cop a feel." She opened her mouth to argue, then seemed to realize she had no good comeback. Instead, she grabbed her coffee and stormed toward the stairs. "This conversation isn't over," she called back. "You're right," I said to her retreating form. "It's just getting started." I heard the bedroom door slam, followed immediately by muffled phone conversation, probably calling the same friends she'd been texting last night for backup and validation. But here's what she didn't understand yet. I wasn't playing some temporary game. If she wanted to redefine what respect looked like in our marriage, we were going to explore that definition thoroughly. As a senior systems analyst at a Fortune 500 tech company, I'd built my career on logical problem-solving and strategic thinking. My annual salary of $127,000 gave me financial independence she'd apparently forgotten about. More importantly, my work involved analyzing complex systems and identifying failure points, skills directly applicable to whatever game she was playing. The rest of the week followed the same pattern. Every request got the same response. Could I help move heavy boxes in the garage? Don't ask me. I have self-respect. Drive her to her sister's because her car was making noise? Same answer. Pick up groceries on my way home? You guessed it. By Thursday, she wasn't just frustrated, she was panicking. I watched her try different approaches, guilt trips about marriage requiring compromise, logical arguments about household responsibilities, even sweetness and manipulation. But I stayed consistent every time. My strategic advantage was simple. I'd been financially managing our household for years. The mortgage was in my name. The car payments came from my account. Her teacher's salary of $43,000 covered her personal expenses and shopping. But the major bills? That was all me. She'd grown comfortable with a lifestyle my income provided, while treating me like hired help. The breaking point came Friday afternoon when her friend Lillian stopped by. I was in the living room when they sat in the kitchen, but voices carry. "He's being completely unreasonable," Emma was saying. "Like, yes, maybe I was harsh Tuesday night, but this is ridiculous." "What exactly is he doing?" Lillian asked. "Every time I ask him to do anything, he says he has self-respect and refuses." "That's actually kind of brilliant," Lillian said, and I could hear grudging admiration. "Whose side are you on?" "I'm just saying, if you're going to establish new rules about respect and boundaries, you can't get mad when he plays by the same rules." Long pause. "But it's different," Emma said, though she sounded less certain. "How?" Because it just is." Even from the other room, I could tell that wasn't convincing anyone, including her. Saturday morning brought new developments. I was organizing tools in the garage when I heard voices in the backyard. Emma was out there with Joyce and Bethany, her divorce coaching squad, having an emergency strategy session. I cracked the garage door to listen. "You need to get control of this situation before it gets worse," Joyce was saying. Her voice had that sharp edge it carried when dispensing relationship advice. Joyce, divorced twice, naturally considered herself an expert. "I don't understand how it got this far," Emma replied. "It was supposed to be simple. You said if I established boundaries early, he'd respect them, and things would improve." "And they would have if you hadn't let him turn it around on you," Bethany chimed in. Bethany was going through her own messy divorce, spending her days teaching other women how to take control of their relationships. "So what do I do now? He's using my exact words against me." "You make him understand there's a difference between reasonable requests and what he's doing," Joyce said firmly. "Men need clear structure. You can't let him think he can opt out of responsibilities because his feelings got hurt." I had to bite back laughter. Responsibilities like picking up her dry cleaning were somehow written into our marriage vows. "But what if he doesn't back down?" Emma asked, and for the first time all week, I heard genuine worry. "Then you escalate," Bethany said. "Get his family involved. Make it clear his behavior is unacceptable and everyone knows it." "Exactly," Joyce agreed. "Men hate being embarrassed in front of other people. Once he realizes how childish he looks, he'll fall in line." There it was, public humiliation as a relationship tool. "I don't know," Emma said hesitantly. "That seems extreme." "Extreme is letting your husband walk all over your boundaries," Joyce shot back. "You tried being nice. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire." "What about what Lillian said yesterday about him having a point?" "Lillian's still single for a reason," Bethany said dismissively. "She doesn't understand long-term relationship management. You can't let men think they have equal say in everything. Equal say in our own marriage. What a concept. Look, Joyce continued, you did the right thing setting boundaries about physical intimacy. That's important. But household responsibilities aren't the same as personal boundaries. He's being manipulative by pretending they are. I almost walked out there. Manipulative? I was using her exact logic, but somehow when I applied it, it became manipulation. So, what's the plan? Emma asked. Simple, Bethany said. Tomorrow is Sunday. His brother Kenneth is coming for the game, right? And your parents are stopping by for dinner. Perfect opportunity. To do what? Make it clear to everyone that he's being unreasonable. Let them see how he responds to simple requests. When he gives you that self-respect nonsense in front of his family, they'll shut it down fast. I'd heard enough. This whole thing hadn't been spontaneous boundary setting. It had been a calculated move planned and coached by her divorced friends who saw our marriage as their personal laboratory. The self-respect comment wasn't about autonomy at all. It was about establishing hierarchy where she got to make demands without reciprocal obligations. Well, if they wanted to escalate to family level, I was ready for that conversation. But it wasn't going to go how they expected. Sunday arrived like Christmas morning for someone who knows exactly what present they're getting. Emma spent the morning preparing her stage, cleaning with unusual intensity and checking her phone constantly. I could practically see her rehearsing lines. Kenneth showed up first with a cooler of beer, already talking about the game. My brother and I had always been close. Sports, work, occasional family drama. He had no idea he was walking into an ambush. How's married life treating you? He asked, settling into his usual couch spot. Educational, I replied, handing him a beer. Emma emerged from the kitchen with snacks, all smiles and domestic perfection. Kenneth, so good to see you. How's work at the construction company? Kenneth launched into a story about a difficult client while Emma nodded along, playing perfect hostess. But I could see tension in her shoulders, the way she kept glancing at the clock. At exactly, right as the pregame show ended, she made her move. Honey, she said sweetly, could you run to the store quick? I forgot ingredients for the salad, and my parents will be here in an hour. Perfect timing. Kenneth was there to witness my response, and she'd framed it as an emergency any reasonable husband would handle. I took a sip of beer and looked directly at her. Don't ask me. I have self-respect. The temperature dropped 20 degrees. Kenneth's beer stopped halfway to his mouth, eyes darting between us like he was watching a tennis match. I'm sorry, what? Emma said, voice climbing an octave. You heard me. I have self-respect. I don't just do things whenever people feel like asking. Kenneth cleared his throat. Maybe I should grab those groceries. I don't mind. No, Emma said firmly, mask slipping. This is between me and my husband, who apparently thinks helping his family is beneath him. Helping family, I repeated slowly. Interesting choice of words. Tell me, when you said, don't touch me, I have self-respect last Tuesday, was that about helping family? Kenneth's eyebrows shot up. Wait, what happened Tuesday? Emma's face went red. That's completely different and you know it. How? You established that having self-respect means not doing things you don't want to do just because someone asks. I'm simply applying the same principle. That was about personal boundaries, and this is about my personal boundaries too. I don't want to be your errand boy anymore. Kenneth was looking back and forth like watching a car accident. Maybe I should come back later. No, stay, I said. This is actually perfect timing. Kenneth, let me ask you something. If your wife told you that touching her was beneath someone with self-respect, but then expected you to run errands whenever she felt like asking, would you think that was fair? She said that? Kenneth asked, looking genuinely shocked. Tuesday night, I confirmed. Exact words were, don't touch me, I have self-respect. Emma was practically vibrating with fury. You're twisting everything. That's not how it happened. Then how did it happen? I asked calmly. She opened her mouth, then closed it, realizing any explanation would make things worse. Look, Kenneth said carefully. Maybe you two need to work this out privately. Oh, we're way past private, I said. Apparently this is now a family matter. She's been getting advice from her friends about how to handle her unreasonable husband. I wasn't, Emma stammered. Joyce and Bethany had some interesting suggestions yesterday. Something about getting family involved to make me fall in line, making sure everyone knows how childish I'm being. Kenneth's expression hardened. Hold up. You're saying she planned this with her friends? I'm saying she's been coached on establishing hierarchy in our marriage, where she gets to make demands without reciprocal obligations. When I started applying her own standards, suddenly I'm the problem. The front door opened and my in-laws walked in, carrying flowers and a casserole dish. They took one look at the scene and immediately sensed tension. Everything all right in here? My father-in-law asked. Perfect timing, Emma said, forcing a smile. Maybe you can talk sense into your son-in-law. He's decided helping around the house is beneath his dignity. My mother-in-law set down her purse and looked between us. What's going on? Simple question, I said, before Emma could launch her prepared speech. If someone tells you that physical affection in marriage is beneath people with self-respect, do they get to turn around and demand errands and favors without being held to the same standard? What do you mean physical affection was beneath? My mother-in-law started, then looked at her daughter. What did you say to him? Emma's carefully constructed narrative was falling apart in real time. I just set some boundaries about personal space, and now he's being vindictive about everything else. Boundaries, my father-in-law repeated. What kind of boundaries? I could see Emma realizing her parents weren't going to automatically take her side without understanding the full situation. She told me that touching her was something she wouldn't tolerate because she has self-respect, I said plainly. So I started applying the same standard to her requests. Apparently that makes me unreasonable. The silence was deafening. Kenneth stared at his beard like it held universal secrets. My in-laws looked at their daughter with expressions I'd never seen before. You said what? My mother-in-law asked quietly. It wasn't like that, Emma protested. He's making it sound worse than it was. Then what was it like? Her father asked, steel in his voice. The question hung in the air like smoke, and for the first time all week, Emma had no answer. She stood there for what felt like eternity. Her parents waited for explanation. Kenneth studied the carpet fascinated, and I watched her realize her entire strategy had blown up. We were just having a discussion about boundaries. A discussion, her father repeated flatly, where you told your husband that touching you was beneath someone with self-respect. When he said it back like that, the full weight hit her. I could see the moment she understood there was no way to spin this reasonably. Dad, it wasn't, she tried, but her mother held up a hand. Stop. Just stop talking for a minute. My mother-in-law turned to me. Is that exactly what she said? Word for word. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath. When she opened them, she looked at her daughter with disappointment I'd rarely seen. Emma, she said quietly, what were you thinking? I was trying to establish healthy boundaries in my marriage. By telling your husband that being affectionate with you means he lacks self-respect? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Her father asked. Because that's what you said. Kenneth finally looked up. I got to say, if my wife said that to me, I'd probably have the same reaction he did. Thank you, I said, gesturing toward my brother. Emma turned on Kenneth. You don't understand the full situation. Then explain it, he said simply. Make us understand why your husband is wrong for not wanting to run errands after you told him touching you was beneath people with self-respect. She looked around at 4 faces waiting for an answer she didn't have. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, my mother-in-law spoke. Emma, I think you owe your husband an apology. For what? Setting boundaries? For the way you set them, her mother said firmly, and for trying to manipulate this situation by calling us here to gang up on him. Emma's face went pale. How did you? Because I know you, her mother said sadly. And this has your friend Joyce's fingerprints all over it. The same Joyce who's been divorced twice because she thinks marriage is a power struggle instead of partnership. Joyce is trying to help me. Joyce is trying to make you as miserable as she is, my father-in-law said bluntly. And it's working. I watched Emma's world crumble as her own parents sided with me. This wasn't how her plan was supposed to go. Her family was supposed to pressure me into backing down, not force her to confront reality. I need some air, she said abruptly, heading for the back door. Let her go, my mother-in-law said when I started following. She needs to think about this without an audience. We sat in awkward silence for minutes. Kenneth turned on the game, but none of us were really watching. My in-laws kept exchanging glances, having silent conversation. Finally, my mother-in-law spoke. "We're sorry about this. We raised her better." "You raised her fine," I said, "but she's been getting bad advice from those friends." "I never liked that Joyce woman," her father muttered, "always stirring up trouble." Through the window, I could see Emma pacing the backyard, talking animatedly on her phone, probably calling Joyce and Bethany for emergency damage control. "What are you going to do?" my mother-in-law asked. "Honestly, I don't know. I can't go back to how things were before Tuesday, not after this." "Good," her father said firmly. "Don't let her treat you like hired help. Marriage is supposed to be equal partnership." "But also," my mother-in-law added, "don't let pride keep you from working things out if she's genuinely willing to change." About an hour later, Emma came back inside. Her eyes were red and she looked defeated. She sat across from all of us, took a deep breath, and spoke directly to me. "I owe you an apology, a big one." Kenneth muted the TV. Her parents leaned forward. "I've been talking to Joyce and Bethany, and they convinced me I needed to establish dominance in our relationship. They said, if I let you be affectionate whenever you wanted, you'd start taking me for granted. So, I decided to test you." "Test me," I repeated. "The self-respect thing was supposed to make you respect my boundaries and try harder to earn my affection. Then when you tried harder, I was supposed to make you work for other things too, keep you on your toes." My mother-in-law made a disgusted noise. "That's not marriage advice. That's manipulation." "I know that now," Emma said, tears starting. "When I called Joyce just now to tell her what happened, she said this was all your fault for not playing along. She said I should double down and make you choose between me and your family." "And what did you tell her?" I asked. "I told her she was insane, and I told her not to call me anymore. That was unexpected. I also called Bethany and told her the same thing. I'm done with both of them." She looked directly at me, voice shaking. "I don't want to lose my marriage over some stupid game that was never going to work anyway. I love you. I love our life together. And I'm sorry I let other people convince me to mess with it." I studied her face, looking for signs this was another strategy, but the tears seemed genuine and the defeat in her voice felt authentic. "What about the self-respect thing?" I asked. "I was wrong, completely wrong. Touching your wife isn't disrespectful, it's normal. And using that phrase like a weapon was cruel. And the errands and demands? I don't want a servant, I want a partner. If I need help with something, I'll ask nicely and accept you might say no sometimes, just like I might say no sometimes." Kenneth spoke up. "So, no more boundary games?" "No more games at all," she said firmly. "I want my husband back, not some guy who has to walk on eggshells around me." The irony of her using that phrase wasn't lost on me, but I let it slide. We talked for another hour, working through what had happened and what needed to change. Her parents stayed for dinner, and gradually the tension lifted. By the time they left, things felt closer to normal than they had all week. That night, as we got ready for bed, she turned to me. "Can I ask you something?" "Shoot." "How did you know to use my exact words against me?" I thought about it. "Honestly, I was just angry, but then I realized if you thought those words were reasonable in one situation, they should be reasonable in all situations. When you kept arguing it was different, that's when I knew it wasn't really about boundaries or self-respect. It was about control." She nodded slowly. "I hate that I put us through this." "Hey," I said, sitting on the bed next to her. "We worked it out. That's what matters." She leaned against me, and for the first time in a week, it felt natural instead of loaded with political meaning. "I miss this," she said quietly. "Missed what?" "Just being normal with each other." 3 months later, she came home from the doctor with news that changed everything again, but in a completely different way. "I'm pregnant," she announced, standing in the kitchen doorway with a huge smile. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. "Seriously?" "Seriously, due in April." I crossed the room and wrapped her in a hug, lifting her off her feet. She laughed and held me tight. I realized this moment would never have happened if we hadn't worked through our problems instead of sweeping them under the rug. "I love you," she whispered in my ear. "I love you too. Both of you." As I held my wife and thought about the baby coming, I realized something important. The whole self-respect drama had actually made our marriage stronger, not because conflict is good, but because we'd finally learned to communicate honestly instead of playing games. Now, we were going to be parents together, as equal partners in every sense. Some lessons are worth learning, even wrapped in temporary chaos. This was definitely one of them.